Good morning, one and all. I am Dr. Ramya Swetha, Assistant Professor, Department of Civil Engineering, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. Today, our topic is compaction files. So, in these compaction files, we are going to understand what is meant by compaction files, what are the various principles which are going to include in this, what are the advantages of these compaction files, and what are the various parameters which are going to influence these. These are all the things. What are the various applications we are going to apply in these compaction files, where we are going to apply these compaction files. All the things we are going to understand in this class. First thing, compaction files. So coming to the compaction files also known as displacement files. These are also known as displacement files, are used as ground improvement technique to increase the. So in ground improvement, the techniques which are required based on the various parameters. So all parameters may not improve in single kind of technique, and it depends upon the which type of property is required to enhance the or replace the quality. So the required thing is depends upon the which type of construction it is, and the how the soil it behaves for the construction work, and based on the design which kind of property we required for the construction of that particular work. These are all the parameters which we have to understand for getting the for adopting the ground improvement technique which is suitable for that particular thing. So for that we have to understand the soil properties. Based on this, which property needs that improvement. Which property needs to improvement, and in which way, in what way. So these are all the things we have to understand, and also based on the type of construction, which type of project, which type of construction, it is, what type of structure. These are all the parameters we have to kept in your mind for at the time of the designing. As a civil engineer, we have understand all the parameters. So in this, coming to these compaction piles are also as displacement piles, are used as ground improvement technique to increase the. Coming to these compaction files, we are concentrate on this density and the bearing capacity of the loose and granular soils. So type of soil is plays a role, and properties of soil. So like this we have to understand the ground improvement techniques. For choosing the ground improvement techniques are also one of the important parameters. So now you have to understand to increase the density and bearing capacity of the soil properties of loose and granular soils. So these compaction piles for loose granular soil types. So in this, the method, so this is the concept which we have to understand, the first step. And now the method involves driving or installing the piles into the ground, which displaces and compacts the surrounding soil. So this displaces and compacts the surrounding soil. The method involves driving, installing piles into the ground, which displace and compacts the surrounding soil. This technique is particularly effective in sandy soils and is employed in various construction projects required stable foundations. So for whenever we require stable foundations in sandy soils. in sandy soil. So like that we have to understand the ground improvement techniques and which type of the technique is we are going to adopt give the better efficiency and the performance of the work also important. So for that we have to understand each and every technique in detail. So in this the method involves installing the piles into the ground which displays and compacts the surrounding soil. This technique is particularly effective in sandy soils and is employed in various construction projects requiring the stable foundation. So coming to the principles of compaction piles, displacement and compaction, stress redistribution are the compaction piles principle. So coming to the principles of these, the one is displacement and compaction. Coming to this displacement and compaction, the primary mechanism of compaction piles is displaced of soil by the pile which causes lateral compression and compaction of the surrounding soil. So this is the prime mechanism of compaction piles. Whenever we are going to displace of the soil by using the pile, which causes finally lateral lateral compression and compaction of the surrounding soil. As the pile is driven into the ground, it displaces the soil around it, forcing soil particles into a denser configuration. The pile which is going to forcing the soil particles into the denser configuration. So this is the principle which is involved in compaction pile. And the next one is the stress redistribution. So once we are going to driven this pile into the ground as a process of the compaction piles. So when we are going to driven and forcefully we are going to introduce these pile into the soil, it means the process of driving the pile increases the stress into the surrounding soil. So we are going to inserting into the pile. We are going to inserting into the pile. So it means it is going to affect the surrounding soil. It depends upon the surrounding soil. So in this, the surrounding soil, it means it is increases the stress, whatever the stress into the surrounding soils, it is going to distribute. But it is not the same as previously what is the status of the soil before insert this pile. So after insert the pile, the stress distribution is different. So this is nothing but the stress redistribution. So the process of driving the pile increase the stress into the surrounding soil, leading to the improved load bearing capacity. It means it is going to increase the load bearing capacity. So the densified soil, once we are going to induce this pile, means it is going to dense. So the densified soil provides better support for structures and reduces the settlements. Once the soil is like this, the density is like this. Once the compaction piles is introduced, the particles are maybe like this. It means it reduces the foundation settlement. It reduces the foundation settlements. So this stress redistribution and the displacement and compaction is the principles which are in these compaction piles. So now type of compaction piles. So in these driven piles and cast in place piles, two different types of compaction piles are there. So coming to the driven piles, they are solid or hollow piles that are driven into the ground using the impact hammers or vibratory drivers. So based on that, we are going to driven the solid or hollow piles that are driven into the ground using these impact hammers or vibratory drivers. So common materials for driven piles including steel, concrete and timber. These are the common materials which we are using for these driven piles. Now coming to the cast in place piles. These piles are formed by drilling a hole into the ground and then filling it with concrete. So these piles are formed by drilling a hole. So these driven piles we are going to use the process. Now coming to the cast in place piles are different. So these are we are going to cast at the site itself. So these piles are formed by drilling a hole into the ground and then filling in with the concrete. So we are going to how much depth and how much diameter or whatever the based on the dimensions, we are going to drilling a hole into the ground as per the requirements. As per the required dimensions. As per the required dimensions into the ground, and then once the whole drilling hole is done, we are going to fill it with the concrete. So these concrete proportions are also, it depends upon the how much proportions. These concrete proportions are also depends upon the how much strength is required. How much properties are required to get found without the construction work is required. So it depends upon all these parameters. So these concrete dimensions, so based on the drilling hole, based on the dimensions we are going to done. After that, the concrete mix proportions are also depends upon the required. Depends upon the mix proportions are also going to be changed. They are depends upon the required parameters, based on the required parameters. So like this, we are going to understand these cast in place piles. So the drilling process displaces the soil and the concrete fills the void, creating a dense column within the soil. So once we understanding the dimensions, how much drilling hole is required, and we are going to fill the required based on the required mix design, based on the parameters. So the concrete is going to fill in it, and the drilling process displaces the soil and concrete fills the void, creating a dense column within the soil. It is going to create the dense column within the soil. These are the two types of the compaction piles which are going to understand. That is the driven piles, and the next one is cast in place piles. The process of installing the compaction piles. So the process, that is nothing but the site assessment, pile design, pile installation, quality control and monitoring are the parameters, are the process steps we are going to follow for installing compaction piles. The first one is site assessment. A thorough site investigation is conducted to determine the soil conditions, groundwater levels and also load bearing requirements. Site investigation is conducted, determine the based on the soil conditions, groundwater levels and load bearing requirements. It depends upon the site assessment. So for this we have to conduct the soil tests. Those are SPT, that is nothing but the standard penetration test and cone penetration test are used to assess the soil properties for understanding the site. How we are going to assess the site and which type of pile design is required, whether it is driven or cast in site. So which type of principle we are going to follow and what kind of stress distribution is going to done after the pile design and before the pile design, how the stress distribution is there and how the materials are going to react for the when we are going to use the we are going to drill the hole and we are going to pour the concrete and how they are reacting. All these parameters we are going to assess in this site assessment for understanding the soil process, to assess the soil process for better understanding about the installing these compaction piles. Coming to the pile design, it depends how the soil condition is there, what are the soil properties are there, what type of the requirement, what kind of soil bearing capacity we are going to require and what kind of denseness. So the density, the final dense of the soil, how much we required for the construction work. All these are all the parameters which we are going to understand. Then only we are moving to the pile design. So once we are understanding all the soil properties and which type of the based on the test, we have to understand the soil properties, and we are going to assess all the soil properties. And after pile design, how it reacts, and what are the requirements for the construction work. So these are all the assessments. These are all kind of directions we have to assess the site, and after that we are moving to the pile design. In this, the type, length and diameter of the piles are designed based on the soil conditions and load requirements. So this is from the assessment we are getting. So based on that, finally we are going to understand the dimensions of the pile. So that is nothing but the length, diameter. Next one is grid pattern is established for pile placement to ensure uniform soil compaction. So the uniform soil compaction, we have to ensure that. For that, we are going to establish this grid pattern. So the next one is we are going to compaction and the performance in the pile design. The first one, we are going to give the dimensions of the pile as per the assessment based on the soil conditions and the requirements. The grid pattern is also established for pile placement to ensure uniform soil compaction, and we are going to compact and the performance. Now, pile installation, driven piles, cast-in piles, already we discussed. So, which type it is suitable for the particular conditions of the site as well as the soil as well as the required construction work. We are chosen whether it is going to the driven or whether it is going to the cast in place piles. Coming to the driven piles, piles are driven into the ground using the impact hammers or vibratory drivers. The driving process displaces and compacts the surrounding soil. Coming to the cast-in-place piles, a hole is drilled or bored into the ground, displacing the soil. The hole is then filled with concrete, creating a pile that compacts the adjacent soil. So, this is the pile installation. The next one is quality control and monitoring. During and after installation, quality control measures such as pile-driven records, load test and soil density tests are conducted to ensure proper. So this quality control and monitoring, we have to understand. For pile driven records, load tests, soil density tests are conducted to ensure the proper pile installation and the piles, compaction piles. This is the process which we are going to follow for the compaction piles. Coming to the applications, where we are going to apply compaction piles. The one is foundation support, and the next one is abutments and dams, liquefaction mitigation, land reclamation. These are the some of the applications which we are going to understand for the application of the compaction piles. In this, the first one is the foundation support. So compaction piles are used to improve the load bearing capacity of the foundation for buildings, bridges and other structures, and also for the foundation settlements. There is such kind of foundation settlements are not happened because of using these compaction piles are also. And abutments and dams. Coming to the dams, they are employed in the construction of abutments and dams to ensure stability and reduce the settlement. For reducing the settlement and the loads, soil bearing capacity improvement, we are using these compaction piles. The next one is liquefaction mitigation in seismic regions. So whenever seismic region, already we know the earthquake regions, the effect of earthquake, the earthquake regions. Compaction piles help to densify loose saturated sands, reducing the risk of liquefaction during the earthquakes. This is also one of the important based on the which type of construction, when we are considering the earthquake effects are based on the where the site location is there and which type of zone it is there as per the seismic region. We have to understand the compaction piles, and this solution is also reduce the risk of the liquefaction during the earthquakes. So these compaction piles help to densify the loose and saturated sands. The next one is the land reclamation. They are used in land reclamation projects to prepare reclaimed land for construction by densifying the loose fill materials. These are the applications which we are going to apply these compaction piles. So majorly soil bearing capacity and the dense soils are there for which any kind of construction, whether it is structure, building, dam, whatever it may be. These compaction piles are giving the better loading capacity and reduce the settlement of the foundation. So these are the major applications which we used in generally in compaction piles. What are the advantages of compaction piles? In these advantages, compaction piles have their own advantages. Those are effective densification. That is the one of the very important one. That is the effective densification. Provides significant improvement in soil density. Whenever we are using these compaction piles in required site or required construction work or whatever the project it is, so the significant improvement which we observe, that is the soil density and strength, especially in granular soils. So this effect of densification is we are clearly understand this is the one of the major advantages of this soil density. Next, the versatility can be used in wide range of soil types and project requirements. So the soil types are more when compared to the remaining techniques, the ground improvement techniques or whatever the different kinds of modification techniques which we are used for the soil types. Coming to the compaction piles, it has more versatile. It may applicable granular, sandy, like that. So coming to the when compared to the other techniques, they are going to limited. They are not going to versatile like compaction pile. But few are there. This is the one of the few. The versatiles, the wide range, we are going to use all these different soil types. More, we have n number of soil types. In that, we may use more number of soil types. We are going to adopt. We may adopt these compaction piles. Coming to the once compared to the other remaining technologies for improving the ground. So this kind of versatility is very less. They are confined to the very one or two types. In some technologies, they are confined only one sort of conditions. So compared to these compaction pile, the versatility is more. So this is the one more important advantage of the compaction pile. The next one is speed. The process is relatively quick, making it suitable for large scale projects. So coming to the large scale projects, this process is relatively quick. The speed of the compaction piles is more and cost effective. It is also cost effective, speed and effective densification versatility. These are the major advantages. Coming to the cost effective, it reduces the need for extensive excavation and replacement of the weak soils. So this is the one of the major advantage of the compaction piles. Coming to the limitations and consideration. So soil type compaction piles are most effective in granular soils like sand and gravels. They are less effective in coastal soils such as clays and silts. So the soil type compaction, the effectiveness is different. So how much versatility is there, even though the effectiveness is different in different types of the soils. Coming to the sand and gravels, it has more effective when compared to the clays and silts. And so this is the one of the limitation for compaction piles. Coming to the noise and vibration. So in this process, it creates so much of noise and ground vibrations which can impact nearby structures and communities. So it creates so much of vibration. Whenever we are going to the in-depth, it affects the surroundings very much. And one more important limitation for these compaction piles is high groundwater levels can affect the efficiency of the pile driven and may require dewatering measures. So it depends. Whenever the compaction piles we are using, the water table is high, the groundwater levels are more, can affect the efficiency of the pile driven and may require dewatering process. And it means we are using two different techniques. For dewatering, we are using one technique, and also we have to use this compaction pile technique for improving the ground quality, ground improve the soil quality, whatever it. So this high groundwater levels can affect the efficiency of the pile driving and may require dewatering measures. These are all the things which we have to understand in compaction piles. So the stress distribution and driven piles are cast in piles and how they behave and on which basis we are going to understand all these soil parameters and what are the advantages, where we are going to apply and what are the limitations. We are all understand all these things. Coming to the conclusion, compaction piles are an effective ground improvement techniques that leverages soil displacement and compaction to enhance the bearing capacity and stability of loose and granular soils. By understanding the principles, types, and application of the compaction piles, engineers can effectively employ these techniques to address challenging soil conditions and ensure the success of their construction projects. Now, for better understanding, these are the some of the web references we may understand and better understanding about these compaction files, you may refer these web references also. Thank you. We will see in our next class.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.